Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the top 10 reasons for people failing their driving test. So what we'll start with is I will start by looking at what actually the top 10 reasons are, and then we'll go through the list and explain what you would have done or could have done on your driving test that would cause those issues to become serious enough for you to fail for them. So the list from 1 down to 10. So number 1 is junctions observations. Number 2 is mirrors change of direction. Number 3 is controls and the steering. Number 4, junctions turning right. Number 5 is move off safely. Number 6 is response to signs, and that's traffic lights. Number 7, move off control. Number 8 is position, normal driving. Number 9 is response to signs, and this time road markings. And number 10 is reverse park control. So these 10 items have been the same 10 mostly for the last, well, I couldn't tell you, probably the last 10 years or so, and probably if not longer. Now, you may be surprised, but only one of those 10, so the last one, number 10, is the only one related to a manoeuvre. And a lot of people think, oh, I've got to get my manoeuvres done, I need to do my manoeuvres, what I say to my students is you have to think that your manoeuvre is so little of your driving test. You're only doing it for a couple of minutes. So as long as you know how to do it and you're confident, you're going to be fine. You've got much more chance, because you do a lot of these other things way more than once. So like number 1, junctions, you're going to come to junctions all the time, whether it be a roundabout at the end of a road or turning into a road. You've got them all over the place. So don't worry too heavily about your manoeuvres, I'd say, is the thing to take from that. Some of the things that you might fail for may fall into, or could fall into, multiple boxes. So there could be a reason that you fail for junctions because you weren't prepared, or you approached a roundabout too quickly. But the reason that you failed is that your junction work, you didn't do the right junction. That's what caused you the issue. You weren't prepared for the junction. You did the junction wrong rather than you approaching too quickly. That caused you to do the junction wrong, and that's the box that they can definitely say 100%. Well, this is what's happened. They've messed up the junction and it was unsafe, and there you go. There's your fail mark. Or sometimes it was only a small thing and no one else is around and you can get out of the way. Then it's just a driver fault, or minor as people call them. So what I will show you just briefly now, I'll just show you quickly up on the screen here. This is a picture of the old driving report. So it used to be your driving test was marked on paper. So you'd have the driving examiner would be sitting there observing your drive, and they would be ticking off on their sheet, yeah, they've done this, they've not done this, or okay, this is a fault here. Now they mark on an iPad, but it's exactly the same boxes that they've got available to them, just it's digital now instead of on a paper. Okay, so we'll start at number 1 and we'll work our way down. Number 1 is junctions observations. It's been the number 1 reason for failing your test for a long time. And I'd say the overriding reason for that is because A, you do it a lot. So you've got to think, even just going to the shops, if you were with your mum or dad or whoever else you might be with in the car, and you watch how many times you get to the end of a road, you turn right, you turn left at the end of a road, or you get to a roundabout, you turn into the car park. There's lots and lots of things, even just doing a short 2 or 3 minute journey. And also there's so many things that can go into it, so many things of, you've got to think it's observations at a junction, turning in and turning out. There's a big main one, but they can put so many reasonings, as I said earlier, there's so many things that can contribute to it, and then the fault that appears is your observations were wrong at the junction, and that's what the big problem was. So if I was to go into a bit more detail about that, the big thing with a junction, big things with a junction that people would suggest that we reasons why you fail would be looking but not seeing. So just you look but you don't see that there's a car coming, and then you go to pull out in front of it. So you've looked right, you've made the head movements and you've gone to check, and well, didn't see anything. It's because you're just doing it because you know you have to, rather than doing it because you know you need to. Sometimes, especially mini roundabouts, how easy is it to, especially if you've had driving lessons, you may have been out with your driving instructor or whoever is supervising you for your lessons, and they say all of a sudden they're on the brake pedal, or your mum or dad or whoever it is shouting at you, slow down, there's a roundabout, and you've just not seen it. So that's another issue. You just go blasting through a mini roundabout and you don't see it, or there's a crossroads and you don't see the end of a crossroads. You've not seen the warning signs that are coming up for that. You've not observed that the junction is there. It could be that you do everything too late as you're approaching the junction. So you've seen the junction, you go to do it all, but then you leave your mirrors and your signal and your positioning all way too late. You get to the end of the road, and then you've either got to stop unnecessarily, so your observations were bad, and you could have gone, or the flip side of that, you should have stopped and you went to go, and then you get stopped again. Your observations weren't right because you've not given yourself enough time. And then obviously the last one, a big one, not the last one by any stretch, but another one. You get to the end of the road and you think, I can get out in front of that car, I can make that, and the gap's just not big enough. So your judgment along with your observations, it was your observations that led to the poor judgment, and you've made all of that, and that goes down to your observation at a junction. Now that could be put into the judgment box, but what the examiners are saying is that outcome was at a junction because of your observations, not because of your judgment. Your judgment's more likely to come into a thing where you're coming head to head with another car and you've not got not enough space, and your judgment was wrong, or your timing was wrong in that situation, rather than it being a junction. The other thing I would say would throw in there would be roundabout work. So we talk on lessons, I talk a lot with my students about looking for a blocker at a roundabout. Where's your blocker? Who's making you the gap that you need to get out in? So if you're giving way to the right, big steady stream of traffic, somebody could be coming from the left, and if you're just staring to the right, and this is going to look the wrong way on the camera because it's going to flip me around, if you're just staring to the right and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting, and you've missed the fact that someone's coming around the roundabout from the left, which would make that car stop, which gives you your gap, all of a sudden you've not observed the junction properly. Now your opportunity to go has gone. Now some could say, well, that's hesitation because you didn't go in a gap, but you've not gone in the gap because of your observation. So that's the reason why that goes in that box. So in at number 2 is mirrors change of direction. Now, when you look at the mirror use box on the test sheet, you've got change of direction, signalling, and change of speed. So with your mirror checking as well, if you go back up the list to number 1 as well, we said you do lots of junction work. You're going to change direction a lot on your driving test. So again, this is another fault that could be interpreted into different areas. But if you're not checking your mirrors before you make your turn, you're just putting your indicator on and then slinging the car around because you see it's clear in front of you, and you've not checked either, is there a motorbike coming, is there something coming around me, or you've not checked to your left to make sure that it's clear curbside and that you've not got any cyclists or anything going on. It's so easy to do so very often, and it's because you do it so often, it's so very easy to start racking up multiple faults. And now some of these faults, this top 10 will be, you fail on them because you get a serious straight away, and then a lot of them would potentially be that they become a fail because of a racking up of repeatedly doing the same thing wrong. Now I don't know how that breaks down into these top 10, but this one has the ability, because you do it so very often, for you to get 3, 4 maybe different mirror faults, and then eventually it becomes you fail for this one. So you've got to think change of direction. It kind of means 2 things: turning left, turning right. Again, routine. So mirror signal, so MSPSL, or whichever it is you've been taught, mirror signal maneuver. You leave it all too late, and when you're rushing, something gets forgotten, something gets left out, and ordinarily it's the mirror checking. Again, drivers have been driving a long time. If you ask them, probably the one thing they say they don't do enough, most of them will go, I don't check my mirrors enough. And that's what this is here, because you get comfortable, or you get to the point where, oh no, I've got to turn here, you've left it a little late. Maybe it could be with sat nav as well. Maybe it's got something to do with the sat nav where you've misunderstood the instruction and you have to turn. All of a sudden, you've got the road to turn into, and you think, "Oh crikey, I've got to get around the corner." So you indicate, wait for your gap, and go, and haven't checked your mirrors. Also, you've got to think about changing direction as well. One I would throw in there that could be put in is when you've reversed out of a space. So you reversed out of, or you've gone from forward to, you're going from forward to reverse, and you don't check your mirrors before you set off again. You've just reversed out, stopped, and off you go. If you don't check your mirrors again and have a good check around, you could pick up some faults there. And equally, another one, it's not one that we suffer from too much around here, where the test centre we use at Leon Solent, there's very little dual carriageway around here. There's a couple of bits of 2-lane road, of dual carriageway road, but if you have to change lane to go around somebody, just not doing the mirrors before you change lanes. So checking the mirrors to the right before you pull out and overtake somebody, or doing it really early and then not doing it again, or whatever it could be, whatever it is, just not doing it properly when you're changing lane would also contribute there. Number 3 is controls and your steering. This one is not to do with you mustn't cross your arms and you mustn't do it one-handed. You shouldn't be driving one-handed. That's kind of a given. But if you have to cross your arms, it's one of the biggest myths, and you'll see in one of my other videos, I'll stick a link up the top here, about the myths of the driving test and the myths of learning to drive. You don't have to not cross your arms. You shouldn't do it if you don't remain in control, and you shouldn't do it as habit. But if you have to do it, you're not going to fail. You need to be in control. So it's not about crossing your arms. This one is more about when you're pulling up on the left-hand side of the road. And it's something that maybe if you're learning with mum and dad, or you've been learning, you're getting closer and closer to your test, you're less likely to make mistakes, less likely to stop with your driving instructor at the side of the road. And during your driving test, you'll pull up at the side of the road probably about 5 times. They'll just pull you up to the left to stop you and then ask you to drive on again. Now, this fault happens when people pull up to the left and then bump the curb. And when they bump the curb, that's the fault of that is that it's not their position that was wrong, it was their steering that was wrong that's caused them to hit the curb. So you either steer too much and hit the curb, or you don't steer away enough, and you then hit the curb again. Another one related to that, once you pulled up on the left, might be when you pull away from the left-hand side of the road, you don't steer enough to go around the car. Again, that could be marked as a clearance issue. So dependent on the examiner, they could mark it either way. They could mark a clearance issue, or they could mark a steering issue because you've not steered enough to go around the car, but then you haven't left enough clearance either. Another one, another big one as well, is what we call swan necking. So you go to turn into a corner, and instead of taking a nice sort of 90-degree corner, you come round and you go out, you go too wide, and then you turn back in, and you get too close to the curb, and then you come away again, and then you straighten up. So you make that kind of swan neck as you come back down of a shape with the car, rather than staying nicely on your own side of the road. Now that's normally got other contributing factors to it. Very often you've approached too fast, but again, you've steered insufficiently and you've ended up on the wrong side of the road. And again, the level of whether that's a driver fault or a fail would depend on the situation. Do you only go a little bit wide and there's nobody there, so no harm, no foul kind of thing? Or is it you come around the corner, you go wide, you don't steer enough, you go too wide, there's a car coming towards you, they have to stop, the examiner has to stop, everything builds up, and then before you know it, you failed because you've gone wide and onto the wrong side of the road. You failed potentially because they put a bit of serious in for your approach speed, and then they might well put they'll then mark that they had to take action, and they physically pressed the pedal, so then you've failed. You've got 3 faults potentially there in one go, and then you've really kind of snookered yourself. Number 4 is junctions turning right. Now, you'd probably imagine that the majority of this would be turning right from a main road into a minor road, a major to minor right turn, and then judging your gap wrong to turn into the road. Now that could be marked as an observation at a junction problem because your observation was bad, which let you think you had the time to get in. But it could be marked like that. It's very often when you are turning right at a roundabout and you try to turn right from the left-hand lane when there's no road markings. So you're asked to turn right, there's no road markings or signs, you're asked to turn right and you're in the left-hand lane to try and turn right. In those situations when you get in the wrong lane, go completely wrong. Don't try and fix it. Completely wrong. Go, if you're in the left-hand lane, you have to go left, turn left. And you can say to the examiner, oh, I've made a bit of a mistake there, I know I should have gone right, but I was in the wrong lane. And they will direct you back to route. Don't try and fix it and think I have to go the right way. You have to do what's safe. Safety, safety, safety is the number one thing. Oh, also this could be at the end of a one-way road and trying to turn right from the end of a one-way road, where you would naturally, if it was a two-way road, you'd stay to the right-hand side of our lane on the left. But because it's a one-way road, you can take the right-hand position to take yourself out, and you end up in the wrong lane turning right again there. So there's your junctions turning right issues there. So number 5 is move off safely. The big one here. So when you've been doing driving lessons with your driving instructor, you'd have been told about doing your mirror checks and a blind spot check. So your roadside blind spot. Now whether you've pulled up on the right or the left or the right rather, before you pull away you need to check your roadside blind spot. Now whether that's your left or right shoulder, that should be the last place you check to make sure it's safe for you to go with all the other information you've got around you. Not doing those checks, not getting that good check over that shoulder or that shoulder to make sure that you know it's safe to go, and you pull it out in front of somebody or misjudging because the mirrors don't quite give you the full depth of vision that you need, depth of field that you need to make your judgment, you then pull out in front of something and that then becomes dangerous and you cause someone to slow down behind you. If you impact on somebody's journey, it's the easiest way to impact on someone's journey, by pulling out in front of someone and making them slow down. Equally, moving off safely, what do we think about keeping our indicator onto the left? So we pulled up to the left with indicator because we're on a busy road, pulled up to the left, you get asked to drive on when you're ready. You go do all your checks, you checked your shoulder, but you drive away and you pull away to the right, back into the traffic with your left indicator still on. Now with that, you're telling somebody I'm staying to the left, and then you pull away in front of them. You may get away with it if there's no one around, but if you do that in front of a car that's coming towards you, you're giving them really mixed messages, and that could cause a real problem. And then the final one with that, I'd say, would be when you move away after stalling. So there's another one which is move off control, which kind of covers stalling really. But this move off safely, if you've stalled and you rush to get away and then you don't check it's safe to go and it's not safe to go, that again would be the same fault. You've not checked it's not safe, you're going to go and do something dangerous, you've gone to move off unsafely. Okay, next one is number 6 is response to traffic signs, and it's traffic lights is the subdivision of that. Probably the biggest one of this is going through the light, straight through it. I didn't see that. I think I didn't just say into the examiner, I didn't see that light, and you've gone straight through a red light or an amber light. Or then the other end of the spectrum, which would be you see the light going amber and you're only about 3 or 4 meters away from the light, and you try and stop and you hit the brake as hard as you can, emergency stop. All the junk in the back of the car comes forward. It feels like your glasses and your face is going to fall off as you go forward. You brake so hard. Someone behind you gets really, really close and you stop in the middle of a junction. In that situation, you go through. It's safer to go through. Another thing with traffic lights would be filter lights. So there's a set of lights, more than one set of lights, but there's a set of lights that I feel that people get wrong quite a lot, and students can struggle with a lot around the area that I teach in. And you wait for your green filter light. So the green arrow, so the light goes green, you're on a filter to turn right, the road's clear but you don't go, you wait for the arrow, and you should have gone because green means go if it's safe to do so, and you wait for the arrow unnecessarily, and you don't go into the middle in that kind of no man's land area and wait for your time and your opportunity to turn. Again, so as you'll see as we get down this list, they're getting more and more specific, the faults are getting more and more specific. At the top there's much more to talk about. That's really about it with traffic lights. There's not much more else to say with them. Number 7 is move off control, so one of the other boxes on move off. So this is generally related to stalling. And now, again, on that video that I said about the driving test myths, it's very often people think that as soon as you stall, you're going to be failed. Well, no, you haven't. It's about how you deal with the situation. So, reset button, into neutral, back into first gear, good check around, is it still safe to go, and off you go. So, repeated stalls. So you stop, you haven't realised that you're still in third gear. You go to pull away and the car clunk, and you go to pull away again and clunk, you stall again. third or fourth time you start to get a queue of traffic behind you now, cyclists are overtaking you, you're still not gone, you're panicking, and then the examiner says to you, or you finally realise after the fourth or fifth time, oh, I need to change, I haven't changed that gear. That would be a fail because of the roll-on effect, not the fact that you stalled, it's the fact that you couldn't deal with getting away again. So you're at a roundabout or a junction as well, you go away, you don't quite give the car enough welly, and then as you go, the car stalls and it rolls halfway out, so you're halfway blocking the roundabout or the road, cars coming around, you end up causing chaos. If that chaos doesn't happen and you can get the car away again, you probably won't fail. You'll definitely get at least a driver fault for your control because you've stalled. This one's all about how bad is it and how much impact do you have on other people. So moving on to number 8, it's position and your normal driving. Again, pretty self-explanatory here. You most of the time too far to the left, so too close to the curb, maybe rubbing the curb, bumping the curb while you're driving down the road. Too far to the right. And again, too far to the right, that's where the other cars drive, you're going to be over into the other lane. So depending on what the road's like, if it's empty, clear, you realise you move back and you hold a good position. Driver fault, potentially. If you're doing it and you're just missing cars coming the other way, you're making it difficult for other people to drive, you're making other people move over, yeah, then you could potentially fail for that. So another one would be on dual carriageways where you go to overtake something and you stay in the right hand lane. Hopefully you should know that with a dual carriageway or multiple lane road, lane 1, so the left hand lane, as most people call the slow lane, it's the lane you should drive in for most of the time. Lane 2 is for overtaking, and lane 3 on a motorway or a 3-lane road is for overtaking. And when you stop overtaking, you should drop back in to the correct road, to the correct lane. So staying out there, you stay out in the right hand lane and you get undertaken by another car, or you just stay out there for way too long when you don't need to be. On to number 9. Response to road signs and road markings this time. So this would be you approaching a roundabout. It's marked on the floor, so the road markings are marked, and the roundabout has got 2 lanes. The left hand lane says turn left, the right hand lane says ahead and right, and you go ahead from the left hand lane as you would do from an unmarked roundabout. You're then in the wrong lane, you've done the wrong thing. If you stayed in that lane and you went left, you would be fine, even if that wasn't the way you've been told to go. This will only be marked when there is road markings on the floor and no other road signs. So if you have a road sign with a lane marking on it and you miss it and you get in the wrong lane, that'd be more likely down to that's a response to the road sign rather than the road marking. Whereas no signs, just a marking on the floor when you get in the wrong lane, you don't keep clear as well, that's a road marking. You've not responded to that in the correct way, and you do the wrong thing, turning right from the right lane, turning right from the left lane, or left from the right lane if you're in the wrong lane and it's road marked and you've done the wrong thing. That's where this one will come from. And then finally, number 10 is the only one of the top 10 that relates to a manoeuvre, so it's your reverse parking and the control element of that. So within a manoeuvre, generally there's 2 boxes on every manoeuvre for control and observation, and then this one for control. On your reverse park is either your parallel park at the side of the road or your reverse bay park. I would imagine that this falls as parallel parking for the majority of the time. So your control on the parallel park, you hit or mount the curb, and you hit or mount the curb hard. Rubbing up to the curb and bumping the curb is not the same thing. If you're under control, it's when you've lost control of the car and you hit and mount, that's when you've got when you're going to potentially fail for that. And a big one is going to be on drop curbs. So when we're out practicing, I will generally have the time to find a good place of parking where you've got a nice long road and you can park up against a curb. But on your driving test, they don't always have that time, and they will ask you to do it, and it might be that you're doing it in front of somebody's driveway and there's a dropped curb and you haven't looked well enough, and then you've driven the car up onto the drop curb and you won't feel that. That's another one where this would come from. The other thing that this would come from on your reverse bay park would be that you just can't get the car in the space. You have a complete and utter meltdown with it. You completely forget what you're supposed to be doing, and you can't get the car in the space for whatever reason it might be, or you think that you're in and the wheels are out or the car's not straight and it's wonky, and you think, well, I can see in the mirrors at the back of the cars and then the front right hand corner's out over the line. That's where that issue comes from on your reverse bay park. Again, if you lose control and the car goes shooting backwards way too quick, or you roll backwards and there's a curb behind you and you bang the curb too hard at the car in the space, again, could be marked as a control fault on your reverse bay park. So that's it. That wraps up 1 to 10 of the main reasons why people fail their driving test, and hopefully it's a bit of information there that will help you, especially with your private practice. If you're practicing and you're not using a driving instructor, use this to help you. This is the main reasons why people fail. You can fail for anything on that driving test report form, but these have these statistically higher numbers for people failing. Again, don't forget, hopefully you've enjoyed the video, nice and informative. Like and subscribe, hit the bell button as well so you get the notifications for when I upload another video. Lots more coming soon, lots more ideas. So it's only a few on the channel at the minute, but there's more coming. So remember, yeah, like and subscribe, share it if you think your friends are going to find it helpful, and comment away below if there's something you feel like that you'd like to discuss, and I'll get back to as many as I can.